Hey everybody out there in RPG fandom, it's Greg, and I'm here to give you some news before we get into episode 163, this time hosted by Caitlin Argyros. Well, it's been a busy couple of weeks for myself personally. It sure has been busy over the website as well, though the features department has been pretty quiet. Some of you might know Neil Chandran best for all of his review work, but I really appreciate him for all the PR work he does at the website. He is on top of connecting with every single developer that reaches out to us or that we want to reach out to get these reviews and get review codes and everything for us as well. So Neil, thank you for all the hard work you do. And to that end, Neil put a lot of hard work into taking on yet another daunting Nuzlocke challenge and going into Pokemon Y with all the daunting rules that challenge presents. To that end, he wrote up a feature that details the entire journey that he took in the Pokemon Y Nuzlocke challenge. That shiny new feature aside, you can also check out Switchport When, which is 40 speculative ports that many of the staff would like to see brought to the Nintendo Switch. Also, I was remiss last time I said Dark Cloud, which I still would love to see on there, but also, I would love to see War of the Lions ported over to the Switch. They've been holding off on porting that to anything but handheld for the longest time. By handheld, I mean like iOS and Android devices. I want it on the Switch. I want that sweet, sweet port to take handheld, but also put on my big screen because it looks stunning, and I never had a Vita to play it on, so give me that Final Fantasy Tactics on my Switch, please. Oh wait, nope, I lied. I forgot. We have some more crowdfunding chronicles. Tina's been busy looking at a bunch of different Kickstarter and Indiegogo titles and has compiled another list of 4 for us over the past few weeks. We got some magical cat girls on there and some zombies and a bunch of cool looking stuff. So go check that out if you want to see the latest and greatest from the indie minds out there in the world. The reviews department has been pretty busy over the past couple weeks. First thing I want to talk about, though, is a little off the beaten path of what we usually cover here at RPGFan.com, and that would be a review of Alex Kane's latest entry in the Boss Fight book series. Jonathan Logan went and took a look at Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, while also, I think, doing a simultaneous playthrough of the classic RPG. Trucking along, though, into the regular scheduled content that we have here at RPG Fan. Sword of the Stars, The Pit was reviewed by Joe Chop. I think that's how you say your name. Joe, I'm sorry if I butchered that. It's an older title that came out in 2013. Old being relative, I guess, at this point. But he gave that a review for us to kind of fill in a gap in our coverage and reviewed it pretty positively. So if you like a roguelike RPG, this might be something for you to check out. Not too long ago, I brought on a couple of new hires to join the video team that we're starting to build here at RPG Fan. One of those is David Lloyd, who jumped over to reviews while we still work on the startup process for videos here. He took a stab at Zenkai Zero Last Beginning for us and jumped into that survival horror kind of visual novel RPG. Reviewed it pretty highly as well. If you like the spooky stuff, David's got some good thoughts for you on that. Pathway is a sweet-looking strategy RPG that up until recently wasn't really on my radar, but Bob Richardson dove into it to have a look, and while he seems mostly positive, he does say there's a few things that it's just missing the mark with. Still, the style of it definitely has my attention, and I do want to check it out for myself at some point. Audra Bowling braved the Caligula Effect Overdose for us over at the site, and it is definitely coming up a little short for her. While there's a lot of strong elements, the gameplay really tanks the game, which is unfortunate for a game that's looking quite polished in so many other respects. Hey, remember last episode when we had Nathan on? We chatted about Dragalia Lost, and guess what? He did a review on it, and that's the last review we have for this week. So go check out his positive thoughts on this really sweet mobile title. Another exciting extra that's come up on the website recently is the continuation of Caitlin Argyros' hands-on preview of Edge of Eternity. We talked about that a couple episodes ago, so go check out her thoughts that she's now put to paper, and just to see how Midgar Studios is developing this sweet traditional RPG for us. Despite it being a light week in the music reviews department, boy do we have a good one. Patrick Gann got his hands on the Time Spinner original game soundtrack and took a look at Jeff Ball's fantastic work for that little Metroidvania darling that we all love so much. So if you had any doubts about playing Time Spinner in any way whatsoever, check out the reviews of the soundtrack and the game at rpgfan.com. And hey, that's it. You can find everything else over at the website as well. Enjoy this episode hosted by Caitlin Argyros, episode 163 of Random Encounter.
and welcome to episode 163 of Random Encounter. I'm your host for this episode, Caitlin Argyros, Leanne Cazzaro on the boards. And see, I'm still used to saying on the boards. I'm never going to stop probably automatically saying on the boards. I meant to say on social media because at this stage in the game, that's kind of where we're conversing with a lot of our readers on Discord, Twitter, and whatnot. So that's where you can find me. You can also find my two excellent panel members for this podcast in a variety of places. Let me introduce them to you. We have Mike Solosi.
Hi, I'm Mike Solosi. I'm at The Real Monsoon on Twitter, Monsoon on the boards, Monsoon Mike on Discord. The trick is to confuse your listeners by naming yourself a different thing everywhere.
Good job there.
Oh yeah, I did not plan any of that in advance. And I also have a second Twitter account that doesn't have Monsoon in the name at all. I'm just a total mess.
What? But that's like your brand.
Yeah, I know, but I couldn't resist the name Evoker for Dogs as a Persona 3 fan.
Okay, you're forgiven for that. And then we also have Alana Higgs. Welcome back, Alana.
Hello. Thank you very much. Alana Higgs here. I am diving falcons on most RPG fan-related stuff, but Twitter, I am just my name, Alana Higgs, and it's really, really nice to be back.
Yeah, it has been, we were talking about this before the show, it's been just about a year or so since the last episode that we were both on, I think, which was our post-E3 episode back in last July, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think I've been on Random since maybe October 2018, I want to say. So, yeah, I've definitely been absent, but I'm here now, so that's
we
all that matters.
We are super glad to have you back. I am super glad to have you back because I always love to have a little more feminine energy on our shows, or at least on Random, because I'm usually surrounded by guys.
Yes, more of that big chick energy.
Yes.
That is definitely one way to describe me.
So as you probably have guessed, Greg cannot be with us for this episode. He is swamped with some real life work, exciting work, but busy work. So he couldn't make it for this episode, although you will by this point have heard him giving his customary pre-show introduction where he runs down some of the latest reviews and news from RPG fans. So at least in that sense, he's still on the show. And of course, he's here with us in spirit and we'll be back if hopefully nothing goes wrong. I will be back for our next episode. So, of course, look forward to more Greg on episode 164. But with the introductions aside and that little disclaimer out of the way, let's start talking about what we've been playing. So I guess I'll start with Mike. We want to talk about, and you had a couple of games you wanted to mention, so I'll let you pick which one you want to lead off with. But tell us what you've been playing.
Well, all right, let's just lead off with the thing that I've been playing the most recently, and will probably be obsessed with for another few months. I resubscribed to Final Fantasy XIV.
Yes!
And a little bit of background on this. I played FF14 for 4 or 5 months in late 2016, early 2017, mostly from peer pressure from RPG fan people, and I really, really liked it. I played through the Realm Reborn storyline and got a couple jobs to level 50, but then I got really bored by the mess of quests after the Realm Reborn story, and I sort of decided not to resubscribe my, not to re-up my subscription after it had run out. But now 2 years later, I got my tax return. I decided, you know what, why not? I'll go back into Final Fantasy XIV. I kind of miss it, and I am really, really enjoying it again. But the downside to this is I've only been back in it about 2 weeks, and I'm still not to Heavensward yet. There are so many quests in between Realm Reborn and Heavensward.
Yeah,
there's 100 of them.
Yeah.
Oh, yikes.
Very quality.
You said that you got to Ramu the last time?
Yeah. I beat the Ramu trial, and I have not started the 2.4 stuff yet. So I am somewhere in the 55 to 60 quests in range. Okay. Of the 100.
Well, you're making good progress, and I mean, for people that have been, of course, watching our streams, Scott's been doing a new character, replaying through the game, and now, of course, it's Scott, and Scott can play through games really quickly and seemingly effortlessly, but he was proceeding through at a good clip as well, so depending on your time availability, I don't think that you should have much trouble getting caught up in time for Shadowbringers.
Yeah, I should be able to make it before Shadowbringers. The thing is, I'm compelled to do all of my daily quests every day, which I don't know, probably is not very good for my time management. But it is helping me level up all of the jobs I mostly ignored during my first run. So, I'm collecting a lot of tomes of poetics and leveling up characters a lot. But the goal is to get to the end of Heavensward by the time Shadowbringers comes out, because the way the pre-order bonus for Shadowbringers works is if you buy Shadowbringers, you get Heavensward and Stormblood for free if you don't already have them.
It's not strictly a pre-order bonus, just so people are aware.
Oh yeah, that's correct. It's just a purchase bonus, not a pre-order bonus. The special earring that boosts my experience is the pre-order bonus.
Right.
But but I own Heavensward, but not Stormblood, so Stormblood won't kick in on my account until my Shadowbringer's code activates. So I'll be doing only up to level 60 content for a while, but then I can start Stormblood and Shadowbringers in early July when that drops.
Well, you have a lot to look forward to, because Heavensward, and you've heard this before, of course, and so have our listeners, but Heavensward it's still, in my opinion, it's the best expansion content currently, including Stormblood. I think that Stormblood isn't quite up to as good, even though it is just fine on its own. So I very much look forward to hearing some of your reactions to Heavensward plot points when you get there.
Yeah, now I'm pretty bad at avoiding spoilers, because sometimes I'll even seek them out myself. But I know what the final boss encounter of Heavensward is, and I know that you fight dragons a lot. But other than that, I don't really know what goes on. Like just Realm Reborn content, I'm still enjoying it, because you unlock just a dozen more dungeons and trials at level 50, and you continue to unlock as you complete more story content. And I love the FF14 story. I love dungeons and trials. I've done exactly one raid, but it was pretty fun. And like the basics of FF14 I really love. I love the job system. I just don't like the questing minutia of MMOs in general, and FF14 has a lot of that.
Yeah, and I guess that doesn't super change even in the more recent content. So it's just kind of a thing you deal with, I guess.
Yeah, and I'm dealing with it. I just wish that there was fewer mandatory quests to do between Realm Reborn and Heavensward, and I'm still stuck in the middle of that. But I'm really enjoying my time back with FF14, because I truly did miss it. I would think about resubbing like once a month or something over the past 2 years, and finally just finally got just decided to get back to it a few weeks ago.
And the great thing is that they should be implementing world visit almost actually right when this podcast goes up. This podcast will be going up the same week that they patch in World Visit. So you will now be able to travel to, like, you and I are both on Hyperion, but you'll be able to travel to Leviathan and see all of our other RPG fan peeps that are on that server, and vice versa. I'm looking forward to showing my house off to people that I know are in different servers and never got a chance to see it. So
I'm content just staying in inns for the time being. I've heard too many horror stories about Final Fantasy XIV real estate.
But it's so good when you can get it.
Yeah, I just let FC leaders deal with that.
You're on a European server, of course, but I know you were playing. Are you still subbed?
No, so I think I actually unsubbed about the same time as Mike did. So I've been unsubbed for 2 years. I'm on Moogle on one of the European servers, but I haven't had the chance to rejoin. I've been chomping at the bit, really. I haven't even seen like 3.5 or Stormblood or anything beyond Stormblood, so it's all going to be exciting. I haven't even played it since they updated the way that attacks and they changed the way that attacks worked, didn't they? So they minimized sub skills and the number that you needed to have on and things.
Yeah.
So I haven't even experienced that.
My hotbars were completely messed up because of the change to role actions.
Yeah, so I've been out of the loop for a long time, and I do think about resubbing a lot, but it's not really doable at the moment, and there is some stuff I'd need to sort out. I would probably move off of the server I'm on and go somewhere else at this point. There's just things, but we don't need to
Join
get
us across the pond.
I would have to pay for that, I think. I'm pretty sure. So, regardless of whether because I think Europe have had their, or are currently at the end of their world transfer or world visit. I'm not sure. So
they started before. The North American is just starting this week, I believe. So you guys might be at the end of yours since they staggered them.
Yeah, I think so. It might even have been finished, but yeah, my Eorzea ninja is dying for me, although she might turn into a aura ninja at some point, so...
Dragon ninjas.
Yeah, exactly. There's so many of them, though. I remember how many I used to see in when ninja was...
Well, there are going to be a lot of bunny girls and lion boys in a few months. So
yeah, I'm looking at those lion boys, and I'm thinking my Mikote warrior would probably have cooler looking armor as a lion boy warrior. I should say a Hrothgar warrior. So I've thought about it, but it would 100% because of cooler armor and not because I dislike my cat boy.
There are so many cat boys as well.
That's true. You know, maybe I should have him evolve into a lion boy. That is kind of like going from a second stage Pokemon to a third stage.
You leveled up.
You got level 60 content. Let's level up.
Well, I'm super happy that you are getting back into 14, Solosi, because it's always, it's fun to play with members of the site and members of our readership, as some of you guys have been doing in our streams, and that's always cool. And I mean, yeah, I just look forward to seeing, what you think as you keep moving through the content. And of course, you've got me and Liz and Mike and a bunch of other people on the site. If you ever need like bodies to do stuff, you just you get on that link pearl and you call us up, and the adventurer squadron will come and kill.
I do look forward to doing that, but you really don't need to. In FF14, they give you like the duty finder is really good at helping you get a party together when you have to do multiplayer content, and you can play through a lot of the game solo.
Yeah.
So it's I do want to raid and run dungeons with you guys, but I'm not in a hurry exactly yet because, again, I'm doing fine on my own, at least for now.
Yeah, well, the content that you're running is so old at this point.
I can buy rank 120 armor for rank 90 content based on item levels. Yeah. So I'm cruising right now, but there will be a time where I ask for help.
Well, that's not the only thing that you've been working on as of late, correct?
Right. I guess let's go back in time a little bit. I recently finished playing East the Oath and Felghana about a week ago. I sort of started FF14 a few days before finishing that. And we recorded a couple podcasts about it for Retro Encounter, this Random Encounter's sister podcast. So those episodes should be up by now, so you can listen to Hillary, Tina, and I talk about Oath and Felghana in particular, and East in general during those podcasts. I think I ended up jabbering about every single East game in those two episodes, but even though it's ostensibly supposed to just be about Oath and Felghana, but that was my second time playing the game. That game's awesome. It's only 10 hours. It is so fun. It is 100% worth it if you like action RPGs. And please listen to those two podcast episodes if you're interested. But before I got into Felghana or FF14, I spent a lot of February and March playing Octopath Traveler, the Switch RPG by Square and Acquire, with a lot of the Square Enix staff that worked on Bravely Default and Bravely Second. I think they share a few writers and producers, but it's not exactly the same team. I was really anticipating that game when it came out last year, and I bought it when it came out, but I only played the first hour or two of... I basically just finished one chapter out of 32 when I played it in 2018, but I've decided, you know what, I really want to get to the end of this and cross it off the list, so I started it in February. My learning curve with that game was so strange because I didn't like the beginning when you just have one or two characters in your party. That sort of defeat. I always like having a team in an RPG. And then when I finally built a team and was starting to cross-class and explore the world a lot more, I really, really liked it. I loved tinkering. I loved the character designs. The story was just okay, but but I let it slide. Basically, it's visually and musically stunningly beautiful. There's a lot to love about Octopath Traveler, but then I started liking it less towards the end because it's a bit of a hollow narrative. The characters barely interact. You might have a couple lines of dialogue when you have certain combinations in a tavern, but in the main story, it's really 8 one-person stories and not one 8-person story. And I don't want to say bewildering or jarring. Those are two harsh adjectives. Just a little, I don't know, it just felt a little off. And I think that by the end, and there is a sort of final area where if you beat all 32 chapters and then complete a couple side quests, you unlock a hidden boss. And I did that hidden boss, and it was cool and challenging. The boss fights in this game are great, but it really felt sort of empty to me. It is like a game that's less than the sum of its parts. Because the individual parts that are great, the music, the visuals, the character designs, the boss fights, the job system, like all of that is great, but overall it feels like, I don't know, like the overall rating I would have as a lower number than the individual category ratings. It was a strange one to me. But people that are, like that kind of old school RPG design and don't want to get it on Switch can get it on PC in about a month or 2 months.
Yeah, so that was, I guess, even in this day and age where like it's becoming more and more common for games that came out only on consoles to make their way to PC, I think at least some of us were still surprised that it got ported.
Yeah,
and it felt like a weird coincidence because I not a lot of people were playing Octopath Traveler in my circles in March of this year, and then a week after I finished, there's a rumor about a PC version. It wouldn't have changed my behavior or anything because I bought it on the Switch last year when it came out. But this is a cool game in a lot of ways, even though I was ultimately slightly disappointed by it. So it's good that it will be able to reach a broader audience very soon.
I want to ask, who was your favorite character and or who had your favorite like overall story?
Oh boy, it's hard to say. By the end of the game, strangely, my favorite character was probably Tressa, because
yes.
I liked a lot of the tricks she could do. She had a sidestep move and an MP restoring move, and she could give BP to people. I'm sorry, BP to people without using items. And if you combine those skills with some advanced skills, she's just awesome. She was like the anchor of my party by the end game. And her story is interesting. It's very upbeat. She's an extremely positive character. But my favorite character was probably Hannet, just because I liked how no nonsense she is, and I liked how her storyline was always all of her boss fights in her story are hunting beasts and not clashing against humans. So it's like Hannet feels like a struggle against nature, and also to try and locate her mentor, who's a fun character on his own. Basically, I liked Hannet's story a lot because it fit who she was, and I just like her character type. But even though I didn't always love her speech affect.
Yeah, it's very heavy-handed.
Yeah. It's like reading a Brian Jakes novel and all the weird accents he gives animals like moles. For the shout out to all the Redwall fans in the audience. But there's a lot of style to Octopath Traveler. Like, it looks so beautiful and it has so many cool ideas, but just the story feels so disjointed that that it made me like the game less. Like, I found parts of Ophelia and Primrose's stories just either incredibly boring or in poor taste. And I like Cyrus and Ulbricht's stories, but they felt sort of normal and predictable. And I don't know. It's like these were, in a better RPG, these would have been 8 important side quests and not a real main story.
Yeah, and I've heard other people say the same. I have put my playthrough on hold because I've been doing, well, what I'll be talking about when we get to me. I've been playing the Trails games. So I've gotten through all the Chapter 1 stories for all 8 characters, and I mean, even when you're doing that initial Chapter 1 stories, it's very clear that these are like just almost entirely separate stories, that there isn't really interaction of any kind. I'm guessing when I pick it back up, now that I have everybody, I'll start seeing some of those party dialogues that occur every once in a while.
Yeah, if you walk into a tavern, and you'll be going into taverns a lot in this game because that's where you switch out your party, and you have a specific combination of 3 characters in your party at the time, then you will unlock some little dialogue scenes. And there's probably a bunch of them, probably at least 30. But it's not the same as having a team present for every story moment. And even during the final battle, where you have to have all 8 characters available, it's still basically just them monologuing, and not your characters monologuing, the villains monologuing. There's no character interaction even when they're all have to be together. I think that party banter and dialogue is really important in an RPG.
Yeah,
especially, and the fact that this game sort of eschews a lot of that, I didn't love, and I'm just repeating myself by now. But I really enjoyed the game at first once I got into the swing of things, and I started liking it less and less when the storyline felt increasingly hollow to me, even though the plot points themselves were occasionally pretty good.
So I guess when they do another game in the series, because I think there's little doubt that they would, at least that they would want to, but...
Oh, I think it's already confirmed, where they're making a Octopath mobile prequel.
Oh, yes, you're right.
And I think that they confirmed that there is an Octopath 2 being made, but we know much less about that.
Right. So hopefully, maybe in that game, they'll be able to allow for party interactions. I know on the one hand, you have 8 separate characters with their own plot lines, and all of their stories are pretty much very personal and limited just to them, but like, it should be doable to allow for the variation. You see other games that do that have different dialogue depending on who's in your party. Obviously, Mass Effect, Dragon Age, both of them do that fairly well. And
the party banter in those 2 games are a major highlight. And if we had 10% of what's in a BioWare party-based game in Octopath, then I would feel much better about it.
Yeah. So here's hoping that's something we can look forward to. Square, of course. Please look forward to it. Please look forward to more party banter in Octopath Traveler 2.
Please?
Please. Is there anything else that you wanted to talk about, or?
Oh, I don't know. Let's see. In February, I played Time Spinner. That game's amazing.
Oh, I'm sure Alana is very happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, no, I let her know I was playing it, but it was yeah, that game's awesome, and a music review of Time Spinner's soundtrack recently went up on the website, and seeing that reminded me, oh yeah, I played Time Spinner a few months ago.
Reminded you? Like, you don't remember anyway?
No, I did remember, but we were like, I saw that when we were having our pre-recording meeting on what to talk about for the podcast, and it's like, oh yeah, Time Spinner.
Yeah, that game's amazing.
But that game is amazing. I mean, if you have any enjoyment of all of 2D non-linear exploratory action RPGs, then you should play that.
Well, that sounds good. And I think that's a good segue, since we have Alana here, to talk about what Alana has been playing.
Yeah, so really, I've been focusing a little bit on visual novels, I guess. So I've got a review coming up on the website in a few weeks' time for a little game called Arcade Spirits, and I kind of picked this up because I'd heard some really good things from one of our sister sites, RP Gamer. Sam Watcher did like a little write-up on it, and she was extremely positive about it. She was raving about it, talking about how inclusive it was, and talking about how fun and lighthearted it was, and how it brought her a lot of nostalgia. So I thought, hey, I'll give this a go. With visual novels, and I don't really get on that well. Like, they tend to be really tropey, they tend to force things, and so I went in with a bit of trepidation, but came out after a few playthroughs feeling really nice about it. So the premise of Arcade Spirits is you've just been fired from your old job, and it's set in some distant future. It's 20XX, because we can't be bothered to give it a year date or anything like that. It's just nondescript.
Isn't that literally the exact year that all of the Mega Man games take place in?
Well, there you go then. It's obviously shared universe with Mega Man, so I'm now disappointed that Mega Man did not turn up at all.
I'm intrigued. Go on, please.
So you've just lost your job, and your flatmate or your roommate tells you to download this app, and this app is apparently this all-seeing, all-powerful thing that can find you the perfect job and also find you the perfect partner. So you download it, and Iris, her name is, this app, she matches you with a arcade job. Now, being the future, arcades are kind of these rundown areas where nobody goes. They're like a slice of history for everybody. But you get the job. The Funplex it's called, and it's run by this really cool old lady called Francine, and she's like 85. It's her husband's old arcade, and she's now running it. She loves it. She's got Pac-Man earrings, and she's wearing cardigans and knitwear, and she's cool, and she's got a good sense of humor. But you kind of get acclimatized. You start off as a floor manager walking around and doing things, but it's standard visual novel gameplay, so you just read a lot of text, and when people come along you talk to them, pick options and things like that. So it doesn't break any kind of boundaries, but it does do some really cool things. So it is primarily a romance game, but very early on you get an option, you get a couple of options. So Iris is determined to match you with someone who's perfect for you, but she says you get this option when she tries to sell this idea to you. You can either go out and say, oh, if anyone I meet, I'll flirt with them and see where we go, or you can pick a kind of middle ground and say, oh, well, I'm not looking for it, but if it happens, it happens. And then you can pick an entirely platonic relationship option, and depending on which one you pick, your answers throughout the entire game are different, and your relationship your relationships at the end of the game end up differently. So if you pick the full-on romance option, then you will end up in a romantic relationship with one of the 6 characters. But if you pick the platonic one, then it will just end as you being friends. So it's really nice that you have that amount of control, because sometimes, like, for a first playthrough, I don't always know off the bat. I feel like I have to know who I'm gonna pick straight away, or at least by like 2 or 3 chapters in, and I don't like that. So I went for the middle option, which is, it doesn't change too much. It gives you some slightly flirtatious options and some standard options, but then it can develop in whatever way you want. Like, your options are basically like, oh, I just want to be friends, or your partner will be like, oh, well, I don't want this to be a serious relationship, I don't want us to put labels on it and things like that. So it's pretty cool with that. And yeah, I was really surprised by that, especially when I went back and did a second playthrough and picked the more romantic options. You could see, like, the difference in the answers you could give. Like, it's only like one additional option you can pick, but it's really interesting to see that, because it kind of caters to a lot of people, and I know that's quite cool. I was surprised by it. It's not really anything I've ever seen before. Usually it's just you go all out, or you have nobody and you're just friends with everybody, which is great. But, like, if you want to get close to someone but not be romantic, then you don't really have that option. And I thought that was a really neat touch. I think it appeals to a lot of people. But the other big thing that this does is your app tells you about 5 different personality types. And these are quirky, basic, which is just kind of standard; steady, which means you're kind of a balanced person; kindly, which means you're very nice and sweet and loving; and gutsy, which means you're sometimes gung-ho for things. And many of the options in this game kind of cater to those. You're able to track these as you play, but you can also turn on an option at the beginning of the game to show you which option is which personality type. So if you don't want to go in, if you don't want to, like, try and work it out yourself, it's pretty easy. But if you want to play, like, really casually and, like, figure out basically which person you want to date likes which personality trait, then you can. And it just makes it a really easygoing experience. And I know visual novels aren't, like, really demanding, but again, sometimes some of the options can be really vague with their personality types, so having that extra option is nice. I went in blind the first time, but the second time and every other time I've gone through with them on just to see the difference in them. It's pretty cool. And then obviously each of the 6, there's 6 people you can date, and you meet them all at the arcade, so 3 of them work there with you and 3 of them are regulars. You have someone who likes Naomi, who likes tinkering with machines, and she basically keeps the upkeep of these little arcade units. And then you've got you have Percy, who is he comes in and plays this one game. It's called Moopy's Magical Maze or something like that, and it's basically like a really cutesy kiddie dungeon crawler that it's kind of a bit like Bubble Bobble as well, in a way.
Aww.
Kind of puzzly, and yeah, he goes in and he's trying to break the world record, but he's in there every day. And so there's just kind of like a wide variety of people and sexualities and genders as well. So I didn't say this, but at the beginning of the game you can pick your pronoun. You don't pick a gender, you pick a pronoun, which is
another
really cool feature. And it doesn't affect who you can and can't date later on. None of the characters are tied to any sexuality at all, so they'll just go along with whatever you prefer or whoever you end up with. And
yeah, so it's whatever the player wants. That's a good way to do it.
Exactly, yeah. There's some really interesting threads as well, like some characters are obviously not sure of themselves, but there's a really interesting discussion later on with one of the girls called Ashley. She's a cosplayer, and she works at the arcade. She's the mascot. She likes to dress up in bunny outfits, and she does cross-playing. So at one point, she dresses up as a butler from a fighting game that's about various maids and butlers that are trying to hold the best tea party. So
okay, no, that is a game I am 100% more interested in than Moopy's Magical Maze.
Right? Yeah, I was so surprised. It sounds so good. So she dresses up as one of the male butlers, and then she has this whole discussion with your character about, oh, I don't know, like, I'm Ashley, but sometimes I just want to be this person or that person, and I don't know what I am or what gender I am or what I feel like. And it deals with a lot of personal issues really heartfelt and really well. It is a bit clumsily written, I will say. It's being a game about video games, it has to drop references everywhere, but and it's not very subtle about them either, and it's definitely a game written almost like it reads like a kind of a teenager's inner monologue, I guess, but it's really fun, and I was pleasantly surprised by it, even with the praise that it had got, because I just came out of it feeling really nice about it. And I feel like visual novels I really struggle with, because they tend to go down these very heavy-handed trope routes, and like even going as far away from dating sims and going to stuff like Steins Gate, which I can't get into at all. Like, it's just so heavy and got so much filler, but this is like just the perfect amount of, you can romance, you can't, there's text, but there's not loads of it, and it's just a nice trip, and I think it's a real pleasant surprise, and I hope that it picks up a bit more steam, because it was really fun, and it's not usually my cup of tea, so to come out of it pretty positive is a nice feeling.
Well, I definitely always feel like when you play something that you feel like is not in your wheelhouse, it's not your preference, and you come away loving it, that's like a sign that this is something really special.
Yeah, I mean, it's not incredible, like, it's definitely got it's even like 3 months down from release almost, we've still got typos, there's still a bunch of interface issues. They've been fixing stuff up, and it's not the prettiest game, and it's not the nicest sounding game, and it's a bit clumsy, but it's got heart, and I think that's all I can ask from it, really. And like you say, I came away with a smile on my face, and that surprised me enough. So it was a really enjoyable little run through, and I'll probably squeeze through another playthrough before the review goes up just to see everything, because I love the cast. All 6 of the characters are really, really good. I haven't gone into depth with them because I don't want to spoil any of them and like set up any preconceived ideas, because I think they're best like experienced in game, because you do start off initially I was like, I'm not sure if I like this person, but when you actually get into discussions, every single one of them has some kind of quality, and they're all really likable, and they're not nasty, and they've got no judgments or preconceived notions against you or anything like that. So it makes it really hard to pick someone to date or to be friends with. I'm like, how do I do this? I'm like so very surprised, because usually I'm pretty set on, I'll date this person, but like I picked one person, and then I met the next person, was like, how? Like, what do I do now? So you just have to do multiple playthroughs and date everyone. That's how you do it.
Well, I was going to say that's kind of par for the course with visual novels, but like...
Yeah, sometimes you get a bad ending if you try to date too many people at once, just like in real life.
Yeah, you can't do that. Your personality tracker at some point tells you have an option between 3 people that kind of, and they match you to the 3 people who are closest to whatever personalities you have the highest. So you can't date more than one person. Not unfortunately, that's the wrong word to say, but yeah, you have to go through it. It's not long either. It's like 5 hours for one playthrough, and then you've got like text skip and things for future playthroughs. So it'll probably be like another 2 or 3 hours for each replay, depending on whether you do different avenues. But yeah, it was a surprisingly good fun, and I can't wait to try Bachelor number 3 or 4. I don't remember now.
Yeah, I'm looking at images now. It looks like there's 7 dateable characters, maybe?
Oh,
no, 6?
No, there's only 6 on it, so the screen is split between. So when you go into your tracker, there's like 5 personality traits, and then it's got 6 images, next to it.
So can you not date Juniper then?
No, she's your roommate.
Okay, that's why. Because like Juniper is one of the 7 characters they show on the main screen here. I get it. So it's so 6 dating options. That sounds like 6 playthroughs to me, Alana.
Mm-hmm. It's 6 playthroughs. Weird.
Yeah.
Not that I have anything else to do. I'm just gonna date fictional people because why not?
We said the review's not going up for a couple of weeks, so you can really provide the full Arcade Spirits dating experience by the time it goes out into the wild.
Oh yeah, I mean, I do have an overall favorite already. It's Queen Bee. She is so adorable. She's a professional streamer and a professional gamer, but she has lots of insecurities and hang-ups. But she can be so loud sometimes. I don't know. She dresses really well as well. That's really vain of me to say, but I loved her design and I loved her attitude. And it was when you
fashion sense can be an appealing trait. So that doesn't make you shallow. That just means you have a type.
Fashion. My type is fashion.
Aesthetic attraction is a thing, so
irrespective of gender. But yeah, no, it's really fun and I would recommend it. So the review should be going up probably sometime in May. We have some other stuff to come up before then, but it's ready and waiting, and I look forward to everybody reading it and at least giving it a go because it's definitely worth it. It's one of the better visual novels I've played. I
look forward to reading it too now. I'm going to have to check it out for myself because this sounds like it might be a little bit up my alley, especially being able to choose whether or not you want to, actively pursue someone as a romantic option or just being friends with them. That's not something that I personally like to see.
Yeah.
And I apologize if you went over this already, Alana, but I mean, this is a game about an arcade. Are some of the arcade games in here playable to a degree?
No, they're not.
Okay.
No.
Because the images I'm looking at show several sort of pixelized, 80s style arcade games. And one of the main characters seems to be obsessed with the dancing game.
Oh yeah, so there's a professional D&D player, not D&D, Dance Revolution player.
Oh man,
pretty much, yeah.
D&DDR, that's a game I need to see.
Yeah, I'm sure if you look hard enough, there is a D&D DDR playthrough somewhere.
Well, that's not the only thing you've been playing lately, right?
No, so in my wisdom and with my backlog staring at me, I decided a few months ago, or actually late last year, I was inspired to dig my GameCube out of one of my drawers and put on an RPG I haven't played for a long time. It's a bit of a cult classic, and I wish more people could play it and get hold of these games. And relevant to a feature that went up a few weeks ago, we did our put it on the Switch feature, or games that we want to see on the Switch, and I put this game and its sequel/prequel on there. So I've been playing Baten Kaitos, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean recently, and been really having a blast with it. It's a bit of an oddball game, but I don't think either of you have played it, have you?
Nope. I'm bad.
Well, it's not I don't think it presents itself particularly well, and I think it came out in 2004, 2005, and the GameCube is not exactly known for fantastic RPGs. By this point, we'd already had Tales of Symphonia, we'd already had Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and those are the 2 big ones that everybody raves about, and rightly so.
Yeah, those are my 1 and 2 for on the GameCube.
Yeah, not counting remakes or ports, I hope.
Well, okay, of course, not counting remakes or ports of legendary games.
Yeah.
But yeah, the GameCube was not exactly the RPG powerhouse the PS2 was.
No, exactly. But Baten Kaitos is a really neat game. I'm going to talk mostly about the first one because I haven't got around to replaying Origins, which is a prequel to this game. And really, you do need to play the Eternal Wings before Origin. You can understand some stuff without it, but there are some really interesting links, reoccurring characters and things. But Baten Kaitos is definitely a bit weird. So it's a card-based RPG and it's pretty slow. So throughout the game, you basically have to upgrade your deck. So you start off with only having 3 cards at a time. There are various different cards you can have in a deck. So you have healing items, you have throwable items, you have attack cards, which every character has their own deck. So Callus, who is the main character, has swords. And then you have Shella, who is kind of the secondary protagonist. She uses magic, so she gets like 6 elemental magic cards, all between levels 1 to 6. That's exclusive to the magic cards, the level system, and the higher the level, the more powerful it is. But yeah, basically you have to, if you pick, and you've got defense cards as well, but you get an attacking round and a defending round, so you do have the chance, if your enemy attacks, to defend against them. Some attack cards can be used as defensive cards, and some can't, but it does help. And you also have to match up elements, so there are 6 elements in the game. So there is fire and water, which are opposites of each other. You've got light and dark, which are opposites, and you have wind and Chronos, which is time. They're opposites to each other. And basically, if someone hits you with a fire attack, if you guard with water, you'll get even more defense against it. So every piece of defense will have like a standard base defense of like 30, but then I'll have in brackets like water defense 35. So it will do both of those. So it will do the 30 defense against a physical attack, and then if that enemy is also attacking you with a fire attack, it will also repel that by 35. So if they did 70 water damage to you, it would be 35. 70 minus 35, which would be 35. But it takes a while to get your head around on a first playthrough, because there's quite a lot to take in. You've got finisher moves as well, which you can do after you've thrown a certain number of cards. By the end of the game, you go from having a deck of 25 or 30 to 60 or 70, and then you can use 9 cards in a round by the end of the game. And sometimes the special moves you have are tied to how many cards you throw out. So 3 cards will get you your level 1 special and your level 2, 4 will get you level 3 and 4, and so on. And your level 9 special, you have to have thrown 8 cards. It has to be the last card in that, it has to be the very last card you use. But it does get really complicated, and getting your head around it takes a while, but once you get it, it's really, really satisfying, because each card has also got numbers on the corners. So there's various different combinations you can do to affect your attack power or your defense power. And if you you pick the card with a 1, and then you pick the number 2 in another corner, you can select the numbers by using the C stick on the controller. So if you pick 1, 2, and 3, you'll get like a 10% damage bonus or a 10% resistance bonus. And if you get 1 to 9, which is extremely difficult to do by the end of the game, I think your attack power is basically doubled. So if you do, 2,000-3,000 damage, which is quite a lot, because most bosses have around, the final boss I think might have in the range of about 15 to 20,000 HP. Maybe not, maybe more than that, but it's quite a bit. But you can do basically half damage to it in one go, which is hard to do, but extremely satisfying to pull off. It's really nice when you do understand how the combat works, because everything works together really well. But I've kind of just talked about the battle system and probably scared a lot of people off because rambled about it. But it is really interesting what it does with the card system, because it was the first and only, it's really still the only card-based battle system I've ever played with. Origins is slightly different in that you only ever have 3 characters. You have 6 in Eternal Wings and 3 in Origin, and you can only have 3 characters in at a time. Those 3 in Origin share a deck, so rather than having individual weapons, they have like level 1, 2, and 3 attack cards, and then if they want, they can equip a weapon either at the beginning of their turn or midway through their turn, and that will change either the attacking quality or the elemental quality. It's very different. They play like 2 very different games, and it's a lot faster as well, and they're both pretty challenging. There are a lot of horror stories about bosses in Eternal Wings, and a few that I was dreading, but apparently I got quite good between the ages of about 15 and 25, so I'm kind of cruising through it a little bit, but it's nice to have that. It's a really deep and complex system, and it's super rewarding when you do nail it, because each character is really fun to play with. You do get 2 spellcasters. They do unfortunately use all the same magic cards, so the idea is not to use them together, and you kind of specialize them in different elements. So I tend to give Shella water, light, and wind, because they're all on one side basically, and then I give Mizuti, who's the other spellcaster, who is adorable. She's this, oh spoiler, she doesn't actually reveal her gender until later on, but she
does the old Ferris move.
She does. Well, you can't tell because she's got a mask on and she has like a voice augmentator in her mask, so you can't really tell what gender she is. And she always refers to herself in third person, but she specializes more in like dark fire and Chronos magic. So don't put them in together because they're both a bit brittle. But if you can play around with your party really easily, and there's kind of something for everybody. But it is a really rewarding system that I have a lot of fun with, and picking it up today made me realize like how hard I found it as a kid, and now I'm just like, oh yeah, it all clicks and it's all really, really good. So I would recommend it for that alone. I would maybe argue as well that Baten Kaitos 1 and 2 might be two of the prettiest games on the GameCube. They're not really pre-rendered backdrops. They move, like, there are bits that move around in the wind and you can see like characters interacting with things, but some of the designs of the areas are gorgeous. Like the cloud artwork alone is stunning. It looks like really fluffy candy floss, but it looks so real. Some of the environments are interactable as well, so you can pick up bits of cloud or water, store them, and then use them elsewhere. You need them for puzzles, side quests. You can only carry like 6 on you at a time, but it's just everything is so detailed and there's just so much to take in. So it's Baten Kaitos' world is basically like 6 or 7 islands suspended in the sky. We're getting a theme here with things that I like, but they're all different. So there's Sad Al Sud is the one, I don't know if that's the island name, I always forget the name of the first island, is very water and wood based. So it's like there's springs, hot warm springs everywhere, there's just rivers everywhere, and then you've got Diadem, which is the air-based island, which is full of really big bright pink clouds, and then Anue, which is all tropical forestry. Mirror is the weird one because the element is stone, but Mirror is a blast to look at because you have a village made out of sweets, you have a village made out of picture books, you've got another village made out of clay. There is a dungeon in Mirror which is a maze which flips you walk, in some parts of it you walk on kind of normal, and then other bits you're walking upside down, and then there's a whole Tower of Daruga reference in the game where you wander around a dungeon and kill slimes and you break down walls, and the Tower of Daruga music plays while you're walking through it.
Is this also a Namco game?
Yes, it is. Yeah,
it's
an old NES game.
Sense, then.
I think it's an old NES game, but it's an old.
It's an old PC Engine NES game that there's always Tower of Daruga references in Tales games. So but I wasn't aware that Baten Kaitos was Namco also. Yeah, it's
Namco produced. It's Tricrescendo and Monolith, actually. Monolith Soft before they went to Xenoblade, yeah.
Yeah.
So there's some good pedigree in there, and it's got some, like, you can tell where the really good environment and world design came from because that Baten Kaitos really kickstarted that, and it's great. And then Alphard's like the technologically advanced fire empire. There's a snow place and a place full of poison and things like that. But like, it's not, again, like, it doesn't do anything particularly incredible, but like the world design is beautiful. The music is probably the only good piece of music, like soundtracks, that Sakuraba has composed between Dark Souls and Valkyrie Profile, I would say. I'm sure I'm going to get shouted at by somebody for saying that, but Baten Kaitos' music is really, really good because it's not all synthesizer, it's electric guitar, there's an entire track that is just violins, which is incredible. The one track I would recommend people picking up or listening to is from Origin. It's actually the title/final boss theme, and it's called Al Principio. I can't remember the rest of it, but it's sung by Sakuraba's daughter, and it's so beautiful.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's really, really good. I would highly recommend both soundtracks. But they do both games do some really interesting things. Unfortunately, I think because of the slow pace of the first game and the really terrible quality of the voice acting, it might be infamous for that. It's really not. It's not awful, but the problem is it sounds like people are talking into tin cans. And some of the lines, particularly for Shella, are extremely flat and exaggerated. So there's lots of very terrible 80s and 90s anime screaming at certain parts. But it's a fun game, and I'm excited to beat it again and then move on to Origins. I've played Eternal Wings maybe, I want to say 3 times before this, and Origin only once, because I found Origin incredibly difficult. But I think with the new knowledge and that I've picked up from Eternal Wings, maybe I'll go into Origin and come away and saying it's really easy. It's not, but I'm sure I'll go in with a better understanding. But they both come highly recommended, and I know there's some very vocal fans out there, and I would love to see them on Switch as a dual pack. I think they would be perfect, kind of on the go games.
Yeah, it would give me an excuse to finally get off my butt and play them, because I've been aware of how much they are loved by their fans for a while now, and I've especially about Sakuraba's soundtracks for them, because I appreciate Sakuraba. I've gotten more and more tired of him as time has gone by, but he was, at one point, he was like on that list for me of like some of my favorite Japanese video game composers. So it really, really great to hear. I mean, I know I can do that now because the soundtracks are out, but I've always been kind of a person who's, I like to hear in context. I find I don't appreciate music as much if I listen to it without context, because it means more when it happens in the context of a story than just listening to it without any understanding of what's going on. So if they were to port them, this would be a great opportunity for me to get that context. So
yeah, and I'm in a similar position because I'm aware of how cult popular they are, and I have heard great things about this Sakuraba soundtrack. Like, it might be his best soundtrack because he's not trapped in his, Tales Star Ocean prison. At least, but I mean, I might be even in a position of more shame because I own the first one and I've never touched it. And I don't know where my GameCube is, but I can still play that on the Wii that I have hooked up in my basement. So yeah, just blame podcasting and video games.
They're not short either. They're both about 50 hours. Yeah, and you could probably cut it down a little bit, but at the end of the game, you can do like character quests, and you get their final class up and their final finisher, and they're kind of needed because it's not good. You go from having like a 7 combo attack to a 9 combo attack, and that makes all the difference in the last class up. So they're worth doing, and those side quests alone can add 5 to 7 hours onto the game. So yeah, it's not a long, easy ride, I would say. It definitely needs a couple of months to put aside and do, but yeah, they're definitely enjoyable once you get past some of the awkward voice acting and, I guess, semi-predictable plot. Like, it's solid. I definitely love it probably more than it deserves, but I think that I feel bad for it for being forgotten because there are so many other really good games on the GameCube and good RPGs as well. But Baten Kaitos has always kind of stood out to me as pretty unique and pretty special, and I'm sad that we did never get that third game, that it got canned, and I wonder if it's because Monolith went off to do their own thing and Tricrescendo went off to do Eternal Sonata. So another weird game that I also love probably a little bit more than I should, but
I'll say that's another good Sakuraba soundtrack is Eternal Sonata.
Yeah, definitely. That's got some, I would say a lot of that's down to Chopin because every piece of music is based off of a Chopin. Like, even the standard tracks have got inspiration from Chopin pieces, so yeah. But still, it's no discredit to him. Like, he does some good stuff when he's free and able to do stuff, but definitely Tales series. I know some people like Exist Archive, which was like a PSV to PS4 Valkyrie profile-like game that came out a few years ago. I reviewed. The soundtrack is kind of, it's overly synthy, which I think is the problem with his Tales soundtracks, is they're a bit too grindy. Yeah. But like, Valkyrie profile synth work is good. That's where he peaked, I think.
Yeah, he used a lot of the same sound library for those late 90s and early 2000s soundtracks, but like, Valkyrie profile is probably the best of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think maybe part of the problem is that he hasn't quite, when it comes to the Tales, at least, side of things, he hasn't really progressed past that sound. Like, things that I like about Eternal Sonata is that it's a lot of natural instruments.
Yeah.
In place of his usual synths, and that was kind of a breath of fresh air after so much in the synth way from Tales and even Star Ocean. And I mean, it doesn't seem like he's really gonna do like change up, and it's not like I say it's not purely about him. It's also about what he's being asked to create for those games. So maybe we should also be like saying, Bamco, let the man branch out a little bit, maybe.
Yeah, they put extremely tight deadlines on those soundtracks for the Tales of series, so it's a bit of both. They're kind of creatively bankrupting him, I think. So either let him have a bit more freedom. I mean, Goshina has now gone independent, so he might be a little bit harder to do. I mean, he'd probably still come back and do it, but like his music far outclasses Sakuraba's contributions to most of the series. I mean, Legendia and his contributions on Zestiria are like ridiculously good, and you can tell the quality difference in them, which is a shame because Sakuraba does do good stuff. It's just that Tales and Star Ocean are a bit restrictive, I think.
Yeah, I guess they should really maybe kind of think about doing the Final Fantasy route where they, it seemed at one point that, it wouldn't be, you would never have a Final Fantasy mainline game without Uematsu, and now, here we are.
After 15 years of Final Fantasy soundtracks, he got a little burned out, and but I think it's been to the benefit of all for him to take a step back.
For sure, yeah.
Right, and I think that Square is to be also recognized for their willingness to let him back out and to bring in other people to do the soundtracks, because we've gotten actually a lot of great Final Fantasy music. I mean, 12, we had Sakimoto, we've had Hamauzu in 13, we've had Shimomura in 15, and of course, my man Soken in 14, so...
Yeah, it's so hard to pick a post 10. Well, even 10, like, it was mostly Hamautsu and, Junya Natako, I think its name is.
Yeah.
And I prefer all of their stuff to Uematsu's, which might be a bit of a crime, but... like going through a list of what each of them had composed, I was like, no, I like this one. Most of it was Hamautsu because 13's soundtrack is incredible. Like, yes. I can't believe how good it is. I love it. Hamautsu's great. His work on, he did the Saga game, Unlimited Saga, which I hate, but the soundtrack is incredible. I hate the game, but the soundtrack is so special.
Yeah, it's in that special hall of fame of not great RPGs with great music, like Blue Reflection.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe we'll get a different one for this Tales game that we still haven't heard anything about. It always goes to Tales when I'm around, which I don't mind.
Heads or tails? Which one do you prefer?
You were on 5 straight episodes of Tales Celebration with me earlier this year.
I was, yeah. I have a brand, put it that way.
And you're right, it is overdue that we've heard about the new Tales game, because they mentioned that it was being made last year, and we expected an announcement this year, and here we are 4 months in, right?
Yeah, the Tales Festival's in June, so I think we'll hear about it then when the mobile game eventually comes out.
Oh, yes, that...
Christoria? Was that the one?
Was that... Okay, so that was announced before we got the details about Ys 9, right?
I think so, yeah. Ys 9 was September, October, wasn't it?
Yeah, they announced the title and gave us a teaser image in the near the end of it, 2018, and then in 2019, every month or so they give us a new image, and we've had a couple gameplay videos by now too.
Because they're both, if I remember what they've told us about Christoria, both games, at least from what we can tell, you are either criminals or you've done something wrong or you have a sin or something like that. They're both kind of going for that. We're bad guys, or we're bad boys now, or something like that kind of vibe.
It's a little bit following off of Tales of Vesperia too, where all 6 main characters in Tales of Vesperia are exiles or outcasts or prisoners. But I think in Christoria, it's you're falsely accused of something, but then the Scarlet Letter or the Mark of Sin that you get gives you additional powers. And in East Monstrum Nox, it looks like it all takes place in a Bastille City-like setting. Where Adal is imprisoned for something and gains some kind of monster power in the prison. So yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is Japan thinks that crime gives you powers.
And we had Persona 5 recently.
Yep.
So
crime gives you powers. I see no examples to the contrary.
that's kind of an interesting trend, and this would be kind of a good transition into our news segment. So let me just really fast, briefly talk about what I've been playing. It's nothing new or exciting. I've been actually working on a long overdue backlog on my part. I started back in late February or early March. I started a Trails series replay because we, of course, got the news that NISA is bringing Trails of Cold Steel 3 over this fall. And I said to myself, I've owned the Sky games, or I've owned some of the Sky games on PC for a while and haven't touched them, and I love Cold Steel 1 and 2, and I really ought to go back and play the Trails in the Sky series and everything and whatnot so that I can, have finally had that experience. And I figured as long as I am reasonably dedicated to doing it, I can get through all of them and replay Cold Steel 1 and 2 before 3 comes out. So that's what I've been doing, and I've finished FC, and I am over halfway through SC at this point. And it's been oh my gosh. Anyone who has ever listened to me talk about Trails when I've said I haven't played the Sky games and is like saying, I'm telling you, play those games, you now have official permission to say I told you so, because I freaking love these games. They are...
I told you so, Caitlin.
Thank you. They are so good. I cannot believe I waited this long to experience them, and I'm like on the edge of my seat with SC in particular. Like, oh, holy crap! I'm right before one of those sort of series favorite moments that you can probably guess what's about to happen if I say that the gang is about to go for a little mini vacation on the lake.
Okay, yeah. It either had to be the beach or the field. Yep.
It's coming up on the beach, so you know what I'm talking about. So I'm on pins and needles about that. And I played Cold Steel 1 and 2 having not played any of the other games in the series. I had way back when started up FC, and because of how slow FC is to get going, I got bored with it, or distracted rather by other games. So I let it fall to the side. But I loved Cold Steel 1 and 2, and was aware enough about what happens in the other games that I didn't, I love the series. I wasn't afraid to say I love the series, even though I haven't played most of the games in the series. Playing through FC and now SC has just like skyrocketed my affection for this series. I love it so much, and I'm looking forward to going back to Cold Steel 1 and 2, having more context from the Sky games and whatnot. I'm interested to see. I'm sure there are some references that I was aware of as being references to Sky, but didn't really have much of an emotional connection to them because I hadn't experienced them myself. So now going back when I get to the Erebonia arc, I expect to have a lot of like, oh, and holy shit, and moments. So
the real thing is after you finish this Trails replay, you got to go back further and play the Gargov trilogy.
Do I have to? I've heard bad things about those games.
I really recommend you don't.
Okay.
I only played one of them, and I really didn't like it. But I was telling a poorly executed joke there. But yeah, I love Trails in the Sky 1 and 2. I haven't played the third one yet. I also have barely touched the Cold Steel games. But I really like those first two Trails in the Sky games, especially how much Estelle grows. Because I think she's a bit of an irritatingly spunky character in the first game, and all the growth she goes through over the first two. By the end of the second game, I just absolutely adore her. It's a really good 1-2 punch. And I should play the third one, but it's not on Vita. It's PC only in the United States, and that was a bit of a turnoff. And there's also it only came out a couple of years ago in English officially, and I was too busy playing, I don't know, probably Persona 5 at the time.
Probably. Well, actually, okay, thank you, because that is now the perfect transition. I don't I could go on about Trails, but I think I'll wait to say more until I've finished my playthrough of the trilogy. So with that mention of P5, let's start talking about some of the news that's come out the last week or two. And of course, since we're talking about P5, we just had the Joker DLC drop for Smash Ultimate on Switch, which I'm not playing because I don't like Smash. Don't crucify me, please. It's not my cup of tea. But I'm pretty sure one or both of you guys are playing, right?
I own Smash. I'm also not really a Smash person. I love arcade-style fighting games, but to give you context, the last Smash game I bought before Ultimate was Melee for the GameCube. Smash Ultimate is good. It gives you a wealth of single-player content. The cast is the biggest it's been, and it plays very, very nicely. I like this Smash game a lot, so I can't call myself I can't be accused of being a Smash hater like I have been in the past, maybe. But this DLC, I think it overloaded or crashed Nintendo's servers. Everyone trying to download it at the same time while they were while they were also doing a system update at the same time. So it was just that was a mess. But once you have Joker in the game, he's pretty fun to play as. He's very agile. He has a little grappling hook for his third jump. And he has a little meter that fills up and allows him to summon Arsene, his main persona in Persona 5, which sort of adds new properties and more power to each of his moves when Arsene is summoned, and turns his grappling hook into a very floaty, large jump. And his ultimate attack is the very stylish Persona 5 all-out attack that ends with the show's over scene.
It's so good. It's so satisfying. Well, the really neat thing with that is if you win a battle with an all-out attack, so if it's like a stock battle and it's their last life, there's 2 different victory scenes you get. So if you win a battle normally, it does the Joker running across the screen, or Morgana can be the car, and it will go through that. But if you win with the all-out attack, it will just go to the victory screen. No running, no nothing. No, that's it. It just goes straight to it like it would in Persona 5. So it's really imbued the Persona spirit into the game. Also, because I had a little bit of a play around with him. Yes, the day before we recorded. He is really fun and really light and fast. He's not got enough. I don't want to say range because I don't like ranged characters, but he uses a knife, so he's not like Marth who uses a sword. So I can't stand. No,
it's not really a sword boy or a heavy boy or a shooty boy. He's a fast boy. I think he's a. Who would I compare him to? Maybe a Diddy or a Fox?
Yeah, maybe Lucas, because he does have a few. Lucas and Ness, so he does have a few long-ranged attacks, which I like.
He's quicker than Lucas, though. He's a speed character.
Definitely. But he is quite fun to play as, and I think that he will fit in nicely. And it was, every single video on the online sharing is literally Joker at the moment. So you won't have any, you won't get tired of him very soon, I don't think, or you'll have to put up with him for a while.
Yeah. I bet there's a lot of Joker versus Joker mirror matches online. I guarantee it.
Yep, there are. Another cool thing for Joker is obviously we've got a bundle. We've got 11 Persona tracks. 4 from, I think it's 4 or 5 from 5, 3 from 4, and 3 from 3. I don't know if I'm right. Each game has got a rearranged version of a track, so Caitlin nicely found out that the rearranged version of Beneath Your Mask is by Ace, the Xenoblade Chronicles composers.
Nice.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a good one as well.
That kind of blew my mind.
Yeah.
And the stage they added to the game along with Joker is Mementos, which is a sort of recurring area in Persona 5 that I don't want to explain right now. and the color and tone and music of Mementos will change as you play through the stage, or you can customize it within the stage. And ambient colors will turn blue when Persona 3 music is playing, and yellow when Persona 4 music is playing. It's a really impressive overall package.
Yeah.
It's not just a character.
Yeah, the victory music also changes depending on what music you're playing. So if you're playing, I don't know, Reach Out to the Truth, the victory zaps, instead of being red, will be yellow, and if the victory screen, if you're listening to Mass Destruction, which of course is right up to the most listenable track in the game for me right now, it will be blue. So they even changed that, which is really neat. But yeah, it's just a massive love letter, and I don't know whether we'll know by the time the episode goes up, but we should have some Persona 5 Royal news coming up next week, which will probably be hot topic of discussion on the next episode of Random Encounter. So
yes,
I'm looking forward to that. Yeah,
yes,
probably.
I think we're all looking forward to just maybe a Switch announcement or an enhanced port of some sort announcement.
Well, we know about Persona 5 The Royal, and we know about that one character from it, but that was a few weeks ago, and I think we are due for more details on that soon. But I think there was a PS4 logo with that Royal announcement, so we know it's at least coming to PS4. But beyond that and what the new character looks like, we know very little.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we're all looking forward to what that news might be, and it will definitely be a point of discussion on the next episode of Random Encounter. So that's not the only kind of new news we had. I don't play these games, so my awareness is just that it exists, but Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, did we get a release date for that?
We did.
Yes. Yep, it is coming out on the first week of July. Wait, no.
The 19th, I believe. It's a week before Fire Emblem.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Right, okay, I was getting it confused with the release date for the Steam
Why is everything coming out in July?
Right, it's a week after Dragon Quest Builders 2 and a week before Fire Emblem Three Houses. Like, July is ridiculous.
And Shadowbringers is also the official release date anyway.
Jeez, yeah.
Right at the beginning of July.
Yeah, by then I don't know if I'll be able to finish Persona Q2 in time, because that's the second week of June.
Oh my gosh.
This is a loaded summer.
Too many video games.
Too many video games. I mean, it's a great problem to have, but my free time, I'm watching it fly away.
But just as important as the release date, we got the cover art for Ultimate Alliance 3, and it looks dope.
It looks like it could be the cover art for like another Avengers film.
Yeah, you can tell it's really, really inspired by the recent Marvel Cinematic Universe, because it has almost the full cast of the recent Avengers movie, plus a couple of X-Men, because I don't think people get, as we know from Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, players get mad if you don't add any X-Men to a Marvel game.
X-Men are important, though.
Yeah, and it is impossible for me to imagine MVC 2 or 3, which are games that I like okay, but love watching at EVO. It's difficult to imagine one of those games without Wolverine or Storm.
Right.
Or Magneto. Those are like 3 of the signature characters, and so people were mad as hell when there were no X-Men at all in Infinite 2 years ago. But they're at least rectifying that a little bit. Wolverine is front and center in MUA 3, and I'm pretty excited about this game, because when we had those run of I don't remember who. I know they're all published by Activision, but the first 2 and the second 2 were developed by different groups. I think Ravensoft did one of them, but the 2 X-Men Legends games and the first two Ultimate Alliance games, I really, really loved. They were isometric, loot-heavy games that were kind of like 4-player Diablo a little bit, with a heavy Marvel themes. The first one was basically a Magneto Sentinel story, and the second one was an Apocalypse 4 Horsemen story, and then MUA 1 was a big Doctor Doom story, and MUA 2 was similar to the Civil War arc going on in the comics at that time. But they're really, really fun multiplayer RPGs. Mm-hmm. And I played through 3 out of those 4 with basically the same group of people, plus or minus 1 that was unavailable at the time. So I think I might get this game just to try and play it with the same group that I played the other games with 10 years ago.
So is it online co-op only, or is there like couch co-op as well?
I don't know. We don't have I don't know how many details we have on this. We have names and dates and maybe some screenshots, but I should have done more research ahead of time. It's definitely multiplayer, but I don't know if it's online or not. The first 4 were all couch co-op.
Yeah, I really think they'd be silly to get rid of that. And I think the Switch as well, because it's a Switch exclusive, there's a few couch co-op games on that system already, and I think it's something Nintendo and the developers are probably aware of, so I think they want to capitalize on that, and I think this is like the perfect game to do it. I'm like you, but I only played the first Marvel Ultimate Alliance, but I played the whole thing through with my older brother, so like we had a blast with it, and I think there would be a tiny bit silly to get rid of that feature, because if you've both got a Switch and you've both got the game, then you can do it in the same room. Like you can, use whatever not Wi-Fi. My internet language has gone. Local co-op. That will do.
Yeah, local co-op or near field stuff.
Yeah.
Just local co-op, especially since all controllers are wireless and have like smarter stuff in them than a PS2 controller.
Yeah, but you can also play on your own screen, like having just undocked. If you've both got the game and both have a Switch.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, so you've got that, and then you've also got the idea of you all sitting together with a Joy-Con each, which would be cool. But yeah, like, it's, Marvel is the biggest it's ever been, and this is the perfect time, because it will be a few months after Endgame, and I think it's coming out after or around the time the Spider-Man film's coming out, Far From Home. So, like, you want to capitalize on Marvel, like, this is the perfect time to do it, and you want to do it with your friends and everything, then yeah, like, I'm really stoked for it. It was a game I didn't know I wanted, and it's coming, and I want it, and I wish it wasn't June. July even.
Yeah, I really want it to. I don't, the thing is, I'll have to wait. I might wait and get it for a time I know that me and my friends will all be free, but, one of them's a teacher and definitely will want to play it during the summer, and the other one travels all the time during the summer and definitely will want to play it in the winter. So I don't know how I'm gonna work this out exactly, but I am very excited to play it. It looks like it's a Thanos is the main villain, and it has several of his disciples as major villains as well, with some of the people that the main characters fought during Infinity War. So. Again, very tied to the current Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is also one of the biggest movie phenomena in history. So I'm sure there will be a lot of interest in this game. They're not just trying to bring back old fans of X-Men Legends 2 like me. That was my favorite of those old four. So yeah, oh man, I hope this game is good. I'm really excited.
Yeah, it looks cool. And, perfect timing too, because I checked. Far From Home comes out July 5th.
Okay, so it's 2 weeks after that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
wow.
Yeah.
Jeez, we'll know a lot by that point. What if they're like the only people other than the cast and the directors that know what happened in Endgame?
Oh.
Now I'm stressed. I mean, actually, by the time this goes up, a few people probably will know what goes on in Endgame because it's out next week.
Yeah.
Recording, and I'm stressed now. So
I still have to buy tickets. I've been bad.
I'll go when it's a bit quieter.
I'll see it eventually. I'm not worried. It'll still be out when I want to see it.
Yeah.
But I rarely see movies opening weekend. Unlike probably the only movie I'm going to see opening weekend in the next 6 months is John Wick 2.
I knew you were going to say that.
Me too.
Yeah, I am obsessed with the first two John Wick movies. I mean, I love stylish, violent action films, and those were basically made in a lab just to appeal to me. So I cannot wait for John Wick 3.
Keanu Reeves and dogs and assassins and law.
Halle Berry.
Yeah,
and somehow, for some reason, they made my favorite podcaster an assassin in that movie. Jason Mantzoukas of How Did This Get Made is an assassin in John Wick 3, and I cannot believe that. So I'm like, how are they going to make the very cuddly Mantzoukas seem dangerous?
Yeah, we got John Wick 3, and then the week after we have Detective Pikachu.
Oh man,
also
I'm
so
May is
ready.
gonna be the best. Okay, God, the next 4 weeks of movies are apparently my favorite 4 weeks of movies in decades. All right,
It's
great.
the perfect storm. It's assassins and Pokemon. Technically, if you consider Rocket Raccoon has Pokemon. So
Sure.
That'll do. Groot and Rocket Raccoon count. Sudowoodo and
oh yes, Groot, because all Groot says is Groot, and Pokemon just say their name or one word or something.
No. So Rocket Raccoon is Meowth because he has human speech, and Groot is a Sudowoodo.
Oh,
fair enough.
okay.
And then there's Ryan Reynolds as well. Who's Pikachu. Look at all this. Look at all this mapping we're doing.
Yes, it's all connected.
Ryan Reynolds even has his own Marvel superhero that he performs as.
Exactly. That's the link.
Who is an assassin.
God.
They're all the same movie. It's a shared universe. Pokemon, Marvel, John Wick.
Oh boy,
I'd
I love
watch
it.
that.
Here we are on Random Encounter. We're just finding and explaining and debunking the mysteries of the universe because we've just connected several different films and franchises for you. It's all the same universe, guys.
John Wick against Thanos and all his bad guys and all the Pokemon. I'm in.
Yeah.
He could do it.
And John Wick's dog. Are we sure it's not a Growlithe? Are we sure?
Oh, yeah, true.
Oh, dogs. Okay, all right. I'm not thinking about that first movie. Not thinking about it at all. Moving on, very briefly, I want to end on the other big piece of news. So very briefly, of course, we all have been beside ourselves watching or hearing about the news about the horrible fire that happened on the roof of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. And maybe depending on how you think about the company, in a surprise move, Ubisoft they've done two things. They have, I suppose, they've donated the game or whatnot, or they've offered for people to use Assassin's Creed Unity to aid in the reconstruction efforts of Notre Dame.
The Assassin's Creed games, Ubisoft puts a lot of money into recreating landmarks to be elements within those games. So they have just a lot of data of Notre Dame Cathedral because they spent like weeks or months or something scanning the exterior and interior of it so they could recreate it perfectly within the game. And what they're doing is they're offering that data to the people building it again so they can reconstruct it as accurately as they can because they might have the best available source of Notre Dame's interior geometry.
Okay, I got my details a little mixed there. Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all good. I apologize for maybe over-explaining. And then the second piece of news is that we're all getting Assassin's Creed Unity for free if we want it.
On PC only, though, right? Because it's through Uplay, so it's.
I think so. Yeah. Oh, it's through Uplay. Okay, that's why people are mad because Uplay sucks.
Yes.
Yeah,
I've already tried, and their website was so buggy that I couldn't actually check out. Possibly because they were getting slammed by people, maybe. But
yeah,
probably.
I sort of get it. Uplay is usually unwanted. When I played Child of Light on PC for Retro Encounter a few years ago, Uplay made it crash twice, and that game is only like 8 hours.
It's not exactly demanding either at any time of specs or anything.
But still, it's a really nice thing that they're doing, and I certainly hope that it's helpful. I mean, we've heard that, most, if not all, of the artifacts that were inside the cathedral are okay. They're safe. I've heard that the famous, at least the rose windows, the gigantic stained glass windows, for the time being appear to be okay, although they're going to have to do some probably emergency work to make sure that they don't fall out of their housings. It sounds like it could have been a lot worse than it was, even though it was, of course, still a horrible fire. The spire is gone. The roof collapsed in one portion. So, I mean, Ubisoft is not like my public enemy number one as far as developers are concerned. I know that they have very mixed reactions from from the gaming community, depending on how much you like their style of open world games. But I think this is a good thing that they're doing to try and help in what way they can. And Unity got panned by a lot of people, so I guess it's nice that we get to play it for free.
It was the buggy one where you could walk through roofs.
Unity is famously one of the bad ones, if just by going by popular consensus.
Yeah.
But it also just happens to be the one set in Paris with Notre Dame as part of the story.
So if you have a PC and you are curious or want to do a how bad is it playthrough, check that out. And then finally, we got some sort of, I guess, unexpectedly early details about the PlayStation 5. So we have some information about what kind of internals it's going to have. So for instance, we know that it's going to have a AMD Zen 2 8-core CPU. The GPU is also going to be AMD based. It's the Navi GPUs. It's supposed to support ray tracing, which is a thing that kind of started more recently. You probably heard about it coming from the latest series cards from NVIDIA. They also, of course, are sort of backwards compatibility style, adding support for that into the 10 series cards. So that's kind of interesting to see what that might give the PlayStation 5 in terms of its power, its rendering power. And then also, this is maybe a little, I get mixed signals from this from various different sources, but it's going to have an SSD. At one point, I think I read that they were saying, Mark Kearney was saying that it was going to be the fastest SSD, which seems a little strange considering we already have super fast SSDs, out there. So is it going to be faster than that? Or is it just going to be on the same level that we currently have? And they're just saying fastest because it's certainly going to be faster than what the PS4 is running.
Yeah, they weren't specific enough with the power of the system, but they made it abundantly clear that it's on how much more powerful the CPU is versus the PS4, and they really, really wanted to minimize or eliminate load times, because I think they hear people loud and clear that load times have become load times have been a problem in this generation, because games are in terms of just how much space they take up, bigger than they've ever been in history, and download times and load times are pretty heinous for even some very recent games. So I think that's one thing they're trying to sell with this announcement. Oh, we're going to have games that look better than the current generation and run faster than the current generation.
Oh, and speaking of games, they did announce that it will be backwards compatible with PS4 games.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
And
that's really the biggest takeaway for me, but yeah.
I think that will hopefully appeal to a lot of people who were disappointed that the PS4 didn't offer any backwards compatibility, even after Microsoft has been doing their own backwards compatibility thing with Xbox One, which has been, I think, pretty well received. So, and I mean, I'm personally relieved to know that some of the game of the generation sort of games that I have on PS4 that I won't have to keep my PS4 around to play them. And I imagine, they haven't said anything about this, but I would imagine that any PS4 games you play on this system will probably take advantage of, if they had PS4 Pro enhancements, they will probably at least have that, and maybe even better performance. We'll have to see what Sony says on that matter once we have more details. But I would be surprised if the games don't run better or smoother on a more powerful system like PS5.
And also, I mean, if you have a large digital library already, being able to maybe reload all of your existing digital library onto the PS5 would be awesome. I mean, you'll have, of course, depending on how much you've bought, but potentially dozens of games to play at launch.
And hopefully the hard drive is larger, please, Sony.
I would be,
wouldn't it? Because
I would be shocked. I would be shocked if it was less than a terabyte.
Yeah, it would have to be.
I really want it to be 2 terabytes. I have the PS4 Pro has a terabyte hard drive, and I'm running out of space on that thing.
I have one with I think just 500 gigs, but I invested in a 2 terabyte external very quickly. Yeah. Because again, just games this generation take up enormous amounts of space. Almost every disc game has a sizable install as well. I think, famously, wasn't the install for the Royal Edition of FF15 over 100 gigs?
Something like that, yeah. It was at least 80, which is
Red Dead Redemption was over 100 gigs, too.
That's it.
Or 2 was, Red Dead Redemption 2 was over 100 gigs.
The first Red Dead Redemption somehow is still only on PS3 and 360 and has no PC or no remastered version, which is a little crazy to me.
That seems odd. What's going on there,
I know.
Rockstar?
I always thought that was odd. I think it's because Red Dead Redemption 1 had a very troubled development history, and it, by the end, was probably being held together with gumdrops and toothpicks. So there could be technological limitations to porting that game. But I've always thought it was weird how this game that was very successful and critically acclaimed didn't get any future ports. But hey, maybe it'll be on PS5 now.
Maybe. Although I've heard some rumors about what Rockstar is working on next, and this wouldn't, even if they did a port for this game, it would not be their main project anyway, but I don't know if they'll have time for it with what I've heard. Which, of course, you can probably guess, if it's not Red Dead Redemption, what else would it be?
Bully 2.
Oh, now, damn it. Now I'm disappointed.
More table tennis.
Bully was such a great game.
It was a good game, and it has a really interesting soundtrack with all of the jazz percussion that pervades it. But I think they probably shouldn't have called it bully, because that gave it some negative attention. Because you don't do a lot of bullying for a game called Bully. You're just sort of an outcast kid in a prestigious private school which has some effed up politics in it. So they shouldn't have called it Bully, but Bully's a great game.
And of course, these are all the PS5 details. They're very early. We're not at all expecting to see this until next year at the earliest. It's not going to be revealed anytime soon. And I think, Mike, what was your theory about why, with Sony not being at E3, so there's no E3 presentation, right, and this has everything, this all sounds like this is very early details. We're not expecting a surprise hey, it's coming out this holiday season kind of thing. Why do you think you had an idea about why they just revealed details about this system so early?
Right. Well, my first thing that made it suspicious that this was a wired exclusive. And normally for something like early specs on the PS5, you would expect Sony to reach out to all of the biggest gaming outlets and have them report on it simultaneously. But instead, this was a wired exclusive, and then all the other outlets reported on the wired exclusive. So that made me think that probably someone at Wired received a leak from a viable source about some of this PS5 information. And then Wired reached out to Sony and said, "Hey, we have this and this and this information. Do you want to confirm this and maybe give us an interview, or do you want us to just leak this and give it as an unconfirmed source?" And my theory is that happened, and then Sony decided that giving Wired an exclusive was better than the bad press a leaked details about the PS5 would be. So yeah, Wired got a short interview with Mark Cerny, or Kearney. I'm really not sure how you're supposed to say that.
I'm not either. Apologies, Mark, if I butchered your name before, by the way.
Well, I'm sure he's a listener, so I'm also sure he appreciates the apology. Yeah, so I think this was probably a leak that Wired reached out to Sony about, and the result was this interview with some basic technological specification information.
Which I guess, it's probably the smartest move for them to do, to control the information and not have the, if the alternative was that it gets put out there as a rumor and then they are perceived by, if they say nothing and they keep saying nothing, that just, could lead to, like you said, bad press. So probably best that they took charge of it. And I mean, we all knew it was in development, but it's nice to actually have an idea of what the specs will be. And it sounds like, my understanding is that both the CPU and the GPU aren't actually available yet. They're coming out later this year, if I'm not mistaken. So we don't know what they're capable of, but the fact that, they're going to be brand new releases is a little exciting. And what we can glean based on those specs and what they're saying about the SSD being the standard hard drive, sounds like this could be a really nice system, depending on what things are clocked at and stuff like that. So I'm optimistic. Obviously, this is not going to be a thing until next year, and I would assume next fall at the earliest, fall 2020 or holiday season 2020 is when they tend to release consoles. So
yeah, I think holiday 2020 is a very reasonable guess for the PS5.
Yeah. So exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of RPGs we can get on a system like that. So
release Dragon Quest XI again, and I will buy it again.
Well, they won't have to release it again because it's a PS4 game,
and soon to be a Switch game, and they still might release it again. I'm not going to totally close.
Game of the Year edition, maybe.
Although with all the Switch updates, so that'll be the Switch updates. They won't add it as a patch to the PS4 version. They'll add all the Switch stuff to the PS5 version.
Yeah.
And you'd buy it again.
Yep. Especially if they make Sandy the Golden Retriever a playable character.
Oh, I would buy it again as well.
Yep. Sandy's the real MVP of Dragon Quest XI.
Can you pet Sandy?
You can. You can pet any large dog in the game, and for small dogs and cats, you sort of kneel on the ground and sort of wave your hand and play with them.
It was definitely not the first thing I did at E3 last year when I saw a dog. Definitely not.
Definitely.
When I played the demo at E3 last year, I spent more than half the time just looking at the skill trees.
Yeah.
That's pretty on brand for me, I guess.
So that's about it for us for news. That's some of the big ticket items, of course. It's not all of the news, but we just wanted to talk about a few things. So we're kind of getting to the end of the show here, but we have a listener question that we'll talk about for a bit before we wrap things up. So one of our listeners, readers on our Discord, and forgive me if I mispronounce this, Anid or Anid, asked.
I always figured it was cyanide.
Cyanide, yeah. Okay, so
yeah, exactly.
Now that I'm looking at it again, okay. Sorry, dude. I was having a dumb moment there. The capital A kind of threw me. So anyway,
what weird capitalizations on the internet? Never.
Anyway, so they asked us about classics. So the question is kind of like this. We talk about classics, and a lot of times when we talk about classic games, you think about older games. So, classic, like, I don't know, Final Fantasy VI, Chrono Trigger, games that are, several generations and possibly, multiple decades away. But what do we think are some more modern classics, games that are more recent, that sort of, I guess, achieved a really vaulted classic status relatively, like, either maybe even as fast as when they came out, or relatively shortly. They're still relatively recent games, but they've kind of reached that level that they belong in the halls of like video game greatdom already.
Or maybe games that 20 years from now will be considered the classics of this current generation.
Yeah. Either way you want to look at that question. So I'm going to go ahead and just get my very first gut reaction, which will maybe surprise nobody who's heard me gush about this game, was Horizon. Mm-hmm. Because it's kind of a complete package game that surprised me utterly with regards to how good it was in almost every area, especially for being a brand new IP from a developer that had never done that before. And I know that it has been influential for other developers in terms of like the graphics engine, and it's been a source for a lot of gamers of like, holy crap, this game I can't wait for more. So that's one of my sort of first picks. It's just out there. You guys know I love Horizon, and I do think it's sort of, very easily fit into that sort of that status of this is a really great game.
I always think it's sort of funny looking at Guerrilla Games' pedigree a little bit, because Horizon has so much beautiful color and vibrancy in it compared to the Killzone games, which are very gray and brown. So I'm almost like, oh, we finally get to make a game that isn't all gray and brown. We're just gonna go totally in the other direction. Just put as much color and beauty as we can into this open world.
And I mean, if you didn't already suspect that they were working on a sequel, we did have, it's unconfirmed, but we had a rumor from one of the voice actresses. I think it was an actress. I think it was a woman who worked on the original game. I believe she did voice acting for, it might have been for the Frozen Wilds DLC, but I don't have this news story right in front of me. She's mentioned a sequel, and in such a way that she has special details that she can't tell us about yet, obviously, for obvious reasons. So there's it unconfirmed. Like I said, we don't know for sure until Guerrilla Games or Sony say something, but we've got more on the horizon, I believe.
Yeah. The story I read was that Janina Gavankar, who does some games journalism and some voice acting, was talking to, I forget if there was someone from Sony or someone from Guerrilla Games, talking about, like just very casually saying how much she loved Horizon, and then the person responded, well, you'll love Horizon too. So like something, it was very casual, and then she reported on it because she was just an excited fan of Horizon who probably shouldn't have gone on Twitter about it. but yeah, it's in the rumor stage right now. But I would be shocked. I mean, Horizon was popular both critically and commercially. A sequel would make me the opposite of shocked.
So that's one of my picks. I have a few more in mind, but I don't want to be selfish. So what about you guys?
Yeah, I suppose so. A few of them have come up on the episode already, so they're within the last 5 to 10 years. But when I thought about it, this might be a bit of a long shot because it's a bit odd, but it was massively acclaimed. Nier Automata, I think, may well be considered a bit of an outsider for like a classic, but I think given the amount of attention it got when it came out and how much it's put Platinum and Yoko Taro on the map alone, I think it's really propelled it beyond the, oh, this is a sequel to a cult classic that wasn't actually that great, but the sequel is here and, you know, nobody expected it to be as good as it was, and it was a lot better than a lot of people expected, and more, you know, it's introduced people to this whole weird world of Yoko Taro and Nier and Drakengard, which are not anywhere near the caliber, unfortunately, but I think Nier, in terms of story, character alone, I think makes it stand out as one of the best JRPGs in recent memory. But outside of that, like, I just think that, and the music as well, the music will stand the test of time alone, I think. But I think that it's maybe a bit outside, but my gut was Nier Automata because of the people who talk about it still and go, oh my god, I still think about this bit, and I still think about the story, and I still think about how much I cried when this happened, and I still, you know, it's still held up as a really high example of Japanese RPG storytelling in terms of, well, everything. Like, it's not tropey, it's not reliant on anything that we've seen before. It's very dark, but very funny and very tongue-in-cheek, and I think it just about does everything right, and I think that people will look back and go, oh, hey, you know, Nier Automata was really incredible for the time, and yeah, I mean, I really loved it, and even with the few issues I had with it, but I think that it's definitely worth throwing into the pile, I would say.
No, I agree. I certainly agree.
All right, well, one of the first games I thought of when I saw this question presented to the panel was Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild.
Yes, that was one on my list
because,
too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, because it, I mean, it doesn't really reinvent the Zelda formula, because there was another Zelda game with this sort of similar promise of non-linearity, but that was also the, you know, original Zelda 1 from more than 30 years ago. And this game, it feels like Zelda, but it in terms of its basic action-to-action sort of gameplay, but the way that it has an open world where if you can see something in the distance, you can walk up to it, and the way it gives you a sense of discovery with all of the shrines and ways of unlocking things, and things like the Dark Island, or the island where you lose all of your equipment randomly, or the Thunderstorm Field, or the side quest where you have to stalk one of the guards of one of the early villages. There's so much discovery and hidden things that both at the surface and deep under layers of quests and gameplay that I unless you do the Link's Awakening remake thing and go back to and throw back to a specific area of Zelda nostalgia, I think every Zelda game is going to be measured up against this one going forward. And it's not a total reinvention, but a broadening and a deepening of Zelda like we've never seen before. And I think it's one of the best Zelda games, and I only say that with some recency bias. I was pretty blown away by it, and I only got something like 85 out of 120 shrines, like low 80s.
Only.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
I played this game for many hours, but I beat the main story and got about between 80 and 85 shrines, and there is so much to that game, and and just the open air. It was one of the most beautiful and satisfying open worlds to explore that I've ever checked out.
Well, it was also on my list, even though I'm not as big of a fan of the game, but I can certainly recognize that it was, you know, from the moment that it came out, I think it just captured everybody's hearts and attentions, and even to this day, people are still talking about it. And I think I agree that it's going to be a milestone for the series going forward, that people might even kind of expect that future Zelda games will also kind of follow this mold because of how much it, well, you know, it wasn't, like you said, it's not a complete change up for the series, but it was enough of a breath of fresh air. God, I'm awful with my puns now.
Well, I mean, I don't think every single one will have to be measured against this, but at least the ones that aren't aiming for a very specific nostalgic vibe, Link's Awakening Remake won't be compared to this. And Link Between Worlds was very deeply referential to a certain kind of Zelda game, and recreating a lot of the map from A Link to the Past. Like, those kind of games won't be compared to Breath of the Wild. But
mainline entries.
Mainline entries, big 3D entries will be.
And any open world RPG survival game, really. Like,
right, yeah.
To be honest, it completely, as a non-Zelda fan, Breath of the Wild completely blew me away. It's definitely my favorite in the series now, but Link to the Past was the only other one I really adored. But yeah, it just did. There's common complaints, like it's too realistic. When it rains, you can't climb up mountains and things like that, and there's not enough music. The music complaint is baffling to me because I think the Breath of the Wild soundtrack is incredible, and it does silence so well.
Yeah, the moments of silence and like the way that the open world can feel like lonely and vast is helped by the silence. I thought it did music brilliantly.
Yeah, so I just, like, as a non-Zelda fan going into it, it was the first Switch game I got and was like, yeah, you know what, why not? Let's give it a go. And I beat it in 75 hours, did all the shrines, and walked away extremely satisfied, and I've yet to play the Switch game that I love more than it still. So, I don't know, it's really special. It did something really magical, and it's going to be really hard to touch it, I think. Or at least it'll be held up as a paragon of what it did, like trying to do something slightly different with Zelda with, hey, look, this is your new open world thing. You don't have to do things in any order. You don't have to do side quests. You just survive. Go on, here you go. No clothes out there. That's pretty much it. And yeah.
Start the game in your undies, and you have to survival game to find your clothes.
Here's a tunic, and here's 4 special moves. Now you can do anything else you want, including going right to the final boss.
No, I didn't do that. I'm not that masochistic. No, thank you. I had a few more, and I think I have to mention at least one of them. And this is another probably obvious choice when you think about this question, but Witcher 3. Witcher 3 is still like kind of, it's the game that a lot of RPGs are compared to, at least RPGs that are kind of going for the same style of gameplay and storytelling, obviously. So, and I don't know that we've had a game necessarily that has surpassed it in that sense. So it's still kind of the bar and the level to beat. So there's, of course, Witcher 3. And of course, we'll see what happens with Cyberpunk 2077. We'll see what CD Projekt Red does with that game vis-a-vis what it did for gameplay and storytelling in Witcher 3. I toyed with the idea of including Xenoblade, because the original Xenoblade, because I think that game, for all of its shortcomings with regards to like the side quest bloat and the graphics at the time, it still did a lot of great things that I think are still well remembered and loved by fans, even if they don't maybe like the other games in the series as much as the original, or, you know, whatever. And certainly for what it did to sort of, I feel like, maybe I'm a little off base, but I feel like Xenoblade kind of helped revitalize interest in JRPGs in general.
No, I would agree with that. It came out in a time where there was a JRPG drought. Like, the Tales series was in a drought. The only really other good one that had come out recently, I'm probably exaggerating a bit, was Ni no Kuni, and some people had issues with that, like they did with Xenoblade, but, like, personally, I also had Xenoblade Chronicles on my little list, and, like, the reasons are really similar. Like, the world this was the first open world, in some inverted commas, RPG I'd really ever got into, because that kind of stuff completely freaked me out. Like, I was like, what am I going to do? Like, Skyrim, Oblivion, things like that were not up my alley, and this was like a different way of dealing with it. But like the world design, the actual, like, but being on the two gods, the characters, the customization, everything about it just kind of blew me away at the time. And I think that because of where it came, because of that generation, I think people will pick out one JRPG in that generation and go, oh yeah, Xenoblade, that's a special game. And it still is. Like, the series hasn't really challenged it yet, I would say.
Yeah, Xenoblade on the Wii is excellent. I would play it again on the Switch, and that thing is like 100 damn hours. and I do not have 100 spare hours that I could be playing, a game for the podcast for more Final Fantasy XIV. But yeah, I haven't played any very much of X or 2, but the Wii Xenoblade is excellent. I don't have anything else to comment, really.
Do either of you have other games you wanted to mention?
Well, the only other thing I would say is Persona 4 Golden, probably.
Yes, good pick.
Yeah, over 5, I think, because 5 has its own deeper issues that, the rough translation and all of the other side things that it has problems with, and being too long. Persona 4 Golden is really, if you want a PS Vita, that's really the only game you can, I'd say this is the Persona 4 Golden machine, go away, have fun with it, but it really put that series on the map. 3 was pretty popular amongst circles, but Persona 4 is one of those JRPGs that you can give to anybody and they'll be like, hey, I really dig something about this. Whether it's the story, the school life, the battle system, the personas, the fusing, there's so much to like about that game. It's not my favorite in the series, but it's definitely it's the first one I played, and it's the one that drew me into the rest of the game. So I think easily it's probably the best example of a PS2/handheld RPG we've had in recent memory, I would say.
I want every RPG to look as good and be as stylish as Persona 5, but Persona 4, I think, is a better game for just how close you feel to the characters and the setting. Being in a small town and mostly centered on a small group of friends with just enormous amounts of dialogue, literally exploring the psyche of the main characters and then deepening your friendships with them. You feel very close to the town and the characters of Persona 4, which make it a very, very special RPG to me. But if I would almost consider Persona 5 to be, I don't know, I like Persona 4 more, but I think Persona 5 might be a more interesting and influential game that, in terms of calling it a modern classic, just because it looks so stylish. And everything from the way you transition between menus and the way you go to a victory screen and the way and just how good the all-out attack finishing moves look like. I think stylistically, I think Persona 5 is maybe the best RPG of the past 10 years, but in terms of narrative and as the total package, Persona 4 is better than Persona 5.
I think you're right.
Especially the golden version, because you can dress up as a Super Sentai in that game.
That gets your seal of approval every time, right?
Oh yeah. All right, now let's take the next 15 minutes to talk about the specific Super Sentai shows that Persona 4 Golden draws from.
Nope.
Back in 1991.
We don't have, our listeners probably don't have enough time to listen.
Oh, no.
We've already been going for about 2 hours here, so. Which, it's been a nice 2 hours. Yeah, guys, this is a lot of fun.
It's been good, yeah.
Yeah, my favorite thing is talking about shared experiences, so naturally podcasting about video games is exactly in that wheelhouse.
Well, I think with that, unless there's anything else that, I don't know, Mike, if you had another game you wanted to add to that list?
I don't know. Monster Hunter World's good. It's added.
It is known.
Discussion.
Well, with that, like I said, we've been chatting for close to 2 hours, so it's probably a good time to wrap things up. I want to thank both Mike and Alana for joining me this wonderful episode. You guys were both awesome. I love you lots. As usual, of course, you can get in touch with us. We mentioned our handles at the beginning of the... I almost said the beginning of the game. So, yeah. But, it's a game. This is the game called Random Encounter. So, at the beginning of the episode, of course, so you can chat with us, Twitter, Discord, whatnot. You can also, of course, if you have a general question for the show, for Greg, something that or a suggestion or something you maybe want us to discuss on the show, you can email us. The email address for Random Encounter, is podcast@rpgfan.com. If you haven't already, you can rate, review, subscribe to our show on iTunes, on Google Play, wherever you get your podcasts. We love seeing people tell us what they like and don't like, so we can either improve or just keep being awesome for you people. And like I said at the very beginning, Greg will be back in the next episode. Having said all that, I think that does it for this episode. So for Alana, for Mike, and myself, thank you very much for listening, and we will catch you on another episode
of Retro Encounter.